Hey everyone, welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. I'm Wendy, and today I'll be decking the DIYs with two of my sweet friends here on YouTube, Alicia at Lavender and Lace and Emily at Farm Charm Chic. So we did a thing. I put some Christmas cues into a random picker on my computer, and we're going to be making our projects using those cues. And so this is how it works, and it just picks out something. You add a list there, and I think Emily is the one that got bills. So I wrote them all out and sent them to the ladies. And so for mine, my first item is going to be berries. For this project, I'm going to be using a pool noodle from the Dollar Tree, a candle, one of these little battery operated ones from Christmas, and then a little mason jar mug, as well as a saucer. And these are all from Dollar Tree, including my permanent adhesive, which I'm going to put at the bottom of my mug, and then I'm going to hot glue also so that it stays snug as a bug in a rug on top of my saucer. So I'm going to let this dry for a little while and make sure that it gets a really good hold on there. And the opening of my mug happens to fit my pool noodle perfectly. So I'm going to make this into a candle, an oversized candle. And so I'm going to cut down my pool noodle. And now I'm going to take my mug and saucer outside and paint that with some gold spray paint. And I don't paint the bottom of the plate, so I'm able to move it around. If you have a Lazy Susan, that would work too, but I'm going to just spray paint this. And I didn't mix this up a lot. I was going to try and make it look like that hammered brass, you know, the old-fashioned kind of thing, because this is going to be the little lantern portion of our oversized candle. So you can see I'm going to kind of spray it so that it drips and gets some bumpity bumps in there and looks old as far as the finish. So now to cover my candle, I'm going to take some wider ribbon, and I think this is from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to hot glue that onto the sides of my pool noodle just to cover up that texture that the foam has on the pool noodle. And I'm going to do this in 3 pieces, and then that way it'll be completely covered up. And then I'm going to go back with my smaller trim to cover up those lines of where the ribbon meets together. And you'll notice I have a brand new glue gun. This is called the HOTO cordless glue gun, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this a little later. But I love how you can kind of do these super long lines with this glue gun, because it's not like the regular kind where you have to squeeze the trigger and then ultimately it runs out after a certain point. This is all electronic and charges up, so it gives you a long battery life, so you can work on projects exactly like this. So you can see I'm lining up the top part of my candle, and the bottom doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be inside of our mason jar. So that's not going to show. And then I am going to cover up the top also. So technically you don't have to have either one be perfect. But when I go back to finish up the third piece of ribbon, it's going to overlap onto the first one that we laid down. But that's okay, because we're going to go back with some really small trim. And this is some ribbon that I got from, actually a sweet viewer sent it to me, but it is from Walmart. And there's 2 different sizes of this flour sack striped ribbon. And so I'm going to be using the super small one, and that's going to cover up my seams. So now I'm going to take some felt icicles from the Dollar Tree. And again, another sweet viewer sent this to me. Anyway, I'm going to cut this down, and that's going to kind of be the wax overflowing from the top of our candle. And I just cut that down, and I'm actually going to double that up because the felt is really, really thin. So in order to make it a little less see-through, I just folded it over on top of itself and then attached it to the top of my candle. So now I'm going to take that battery operated candle, and I'm going to pull off the base or the little stand, and then if you just screw off the top flame portion, you can add your batteries into it and then screw the little flame right back on top. And then that's going to go right in the hole of our little candle, and it fits perfectly in there, and you can pull it out and put it back. Now, one thing about this is if you want to have the light off and still have the flame up there, you have to turn that top battery upside down so that it doesn't light, because the flame won't stay on there unless it's really pushed down there and twisted on. So flipping that battery or taking it all the way out is the only real way to turn it off. So now to attach my candle to my jar, I'm going to take some hot glue and just rub that around, or push that around at the top of my jar and then stick my pool noodle inside. You really don't need this because it does stay in place, but I had decided that I wanted it a little bit taller, so the bottom of my noodle is not all the way down at the bottom of my mug. You see what I'm saying? So now I'm gonna take some Christmas greenery, some eucalyptus and white poinsettias. I don't end up using the hydrangeas, but this is where I'm gonna incorporate my berries. These are from the Dollar Tree and they have this really pretty frosting on them. I think they're so pretty. So I'm gonna cut down my eucalyptus, and I don't think you can see very well, but it's got some pretty Christmas glitter on there. I don't know that it's Christmas glitter, but it makes it Christmas by adding the glitter. And then I'm going to cut all of these pieces down. Now, to make a little swag on the front of my lantern, I'm just going to put those little pieces going away from each other, and then where they meet in the middle, I'm just going to grab it all and then use a nylon zip tie to attach that together in the middle. And then I can go back later and cut off the excess stems that are overhanging or showing, and cut off the excess zip tie, and then I'm going to glue that right onto the front part of my little lantern. And then to cover up the zip tie, I'll just hot glue another poinsettia right in the middle, and then I'll start adding my little berries. And these come in pairs where they're kind of twisted together. So I'm just going to add some of my hot glue to the stems and poke it into our little arrangement. So I wanted to show you the different sizes of this ribbon. It's so pretty, and this is the 5/8 inch ribbon, and then the smaller one, I don't know what that would be, but it's a smaller size as you can see. But I'm going to take the 5/8 inch ribbon and tie a sweet little bow around the rim of my candlestick. And I kept calling this a lantern, and I looked it up because I knew that there was another word that I couldn't remember, but it's a chamber stick. I guess that's what they're called, you know, the ones with the candles, just, well, like it is. But in the old days, this is what they would use to put by their bedside or carry it around, and that's why it has the handle. But here it is, all finished, and I think this is so, so pretty. I love the oversized look of it. You know, I love red and white together, and I just think it looks so pretty, and we used our berries. I love it, and I hope you guys like it too. For this next project, we're going to be using this little shortbread cookie tin. I'm sure you guys have seen these all over the place, and this one's going to be the one that we use for the word cottage. Now, there are different kinds of cottages. There's English cottage, French cottage, all kinds of cottages, and I wasn't sure which one to do. So anytime I think of cottage, I kind of think pink. So I'm going to use this, and my original plan was to open up the top part of this and just leave the ring. That was a lot easier said than done. At first I tried to use a utility knife, and then I tried to use scissors and then some tin snips. I couldn't get my tin snips through it, so I had to poke a hole with my big fat nail and then use it to cut all the way around. This was a lot harder than I thought. If you do want to do this project, you could also use one of those stove covers from the Dollar Tree. It's a lot thinner, and I've used it before in another project where I made a bird cage, But anyway, I eventually got it all the way cut out, and my muscles were sore after this, but I knew I wanted to do this project. So after I got the tin part all the way out, I'm gonna make little snips all the way around where the piece that's sticking out is, so that I can then use a pair of pliers to push those jaggedy edges down, and then it'll be nice and soft and no pointy parts. Now this isn't gonna show, so I wasn't worried about how crookedy it got. But ultimately, once I was finally done with it, then I could move on to the next step. So now to cover up that window, I'm going to use this Jecky's brand plastic clear sheets. I used this to make stencils for my back patio a few years ago. So I don't even know really what it's called, but I'm just going to make a circle here that's the size of that ring. And then I'm going to use my hot glue on the back side and place that in there. So it's working as a little window. You could also use the plastic packaging from a toy or something. I don't even know what this all comes on, but you know, one of those packages that has the clear window in the front, and then just place that inside, and that just becomes our little window to our opening. So then I painted my tin and my ring with the white chalk paint from Waverly. I actually turned off the camera in this part thinking I was done filming. So this is just me doing it afterwards. So not a lot of footage here. So now for the outside ring to cover up all those nasties, I'm gonna take some white eyelet lace and just hot glue that all the way around. But I'm still able to put this over the top of my cookie tin. And just a little more information about my HOTO glue gun. You can see here I'm using my other one. I thought that because the HOTO is rechargeable, I thought I ran out of charge, but I didn't know until I was reading the brief again that you can do it corded or cordless. So I could have had it plugged in and charging while I was using it, but this thing, it only takes 30 seconds to preheat. You push the button and it's ready to go in 30 seconds. So that's super awesome and quick. And then also the charge will last for 28 glue sticks approximately. Now I was using the longer glue sticks, but I think that calculation is pretty darn close. Now I'll have a discount code linked in the description box below so that you can get a discount if you decide you want one of these. There is a little learning curve on, you know, getting used to it, but I think it's definitely worth the price. So now I want to add lights to this, and I'm making sure that the seam of my tin is at the bottom, and I'm going to be using this church. So in the area where it's solid and you won't be able to see the little turn switch, or you know, the on-off switch, I'm going to take my big fat nail and punch in some holes, and then I'm going to feed my lights in through the back and then tape my battery pack onto the back where there's a little lip, and then I can either hang this or I can set it up. You'll see how I use it. But these lights, these fairy lights, I'll have these linked in the description box below, or you can click on the shop button at the bottom of the screen to find all of the items that I have in this video. So now I'm going to get my church ready, and the first thing I'm going to do is cut off the little round part at the top. This is an ornament from the Dollar Tree, but we don't need to use it that way, so I'm just going to cut that off. And then I want to use this greenery, but not for the church itself, so I'm going to pull that out and set it aside. And then to cover up the sides of my tin, I'm going to use some pink burlap from the Dollar Tree and then just glue that all the way around. Now I want to use the seam of the tin to be the bottom, or where I'm going to make all of my seams for my ribbon, so that all of the ickies are in one place. And just to give it a finished edge, I'll fold over the ribbon and hot glue that down. And then once I get my burlap down, I'm going to use some 5/8 inch pink and white gingham to give it that cottage feel. So now to cover up the little hole on the church where I pulled that greenery out, I'm just going to make a sweet little bow with that pink and white gingham, and I'll hot glue that over it to cover it up. Now I want all of my lights to be toward the bottom because I don't really want to see them in the background. So I'm just going to use some Scotch tape to get those all under control, and everything will be covering it. So the light will still be glowing, but my goodies will be covering it up. So I'm first going to hot glue these adorable little pink trees to the sides of my church, kind of like topiaries. And these are from Easter time. You can find pink Christmas trees. Well, they become Christmas trees, but they're Easter trees when you buy them. And I'm just going to put those on both sides of my house or my church. And then on the back, I'm going to hot glue the areas that stick out so that it goes against the back part of my tin. And then I just took some Dollar Tree Christmas trees. I have a green one and a white one. And then on the other side, I'll have a white one and a pink one. And since the back of the trees are not flat, I'm just going to kind of mushy it onto the back of the tin so that it stays in place. And then for the front ones, they kind of just go into the back trees, so they stay in place. But then I hot glued the bases so that they stayed snug as a bug in a rug. So even in storage, they shouldn't move around. So now I'm going to take some of Dollar Tree's batting and just took a little bit of extra that I had, and I'm going to place that right at the bottom so that it looks like snow. And I love the look of this. You could also use faux snow, but I think this just gives a real heavenly look, you know, where it's all soft, and especially when you see the lights behind it. Oh, it's so pretty. Anyway, now I'm going to take my white paint pen and I'm going to put some little snow drifts, I don't know, some snow dots in the background. And then I went ahead and made a Bethlehem star in the back just to give a little nod to the true reason for the season. And then I'll place my lid right back on top. So now I found this little painter's tape, you know, the inside spool, and so it's going to sit on this because it kept moving back and forth on me. It happened to be pink. I don't know what I painted on it or how it got pink, but it's pink and it's perfect. So I'm just going to set it on that, and I end up leaving it. But now I'm going to take a little piece of pool noodle and cut that down with my knife, and then for the little jaggedy edges I can just use my scissors to soften that out, or, you know, make it all nice and smooth. And then I'm going to take a clear shower ring from the Dollar Tree and place that right on top of my pool noodle. Now this is going to turn into an ornament, so I'm going to use this as the hook. And to make it look more like a hook, I'm going to use this Rust-Oleum metallic finish paint, and this is in the color chrome. And so I'll just take that outside and spray paint the entire thing. And then once it was dry at the top, I'm going to come back in because I could still see some pink poking out of the hole, and I'll just paint inside of the little pool noodle hole. So now I'm going to take that greenery from our church and I'm going to kind of deconstruct it, but I'm pulling off the red berries and then just adding some pink and white scatter foam. I don't know why they call it scatter foam, but that's what it's called. But it's these little styrofoam balls that you can get at different seasons of the year, and I like to pick them up because there's different colors for different seasons, and I can always use them at Christmas time. So I'll just pull off the red one, add some hot glue to the little stem sticking out, and then poke on my styrofoam ball. And then I'm just going to put a bunch of hot glue down at the bottom and place my little swag in the middle. And then I have some Christmas hydrangeas that I'm going to add to the bottom. And again, they're only Christmassy because they have glitter on there. So I'm just going to add a few of those to the middle. And I'm actually going to add some more greenery once we get done here. But the first thing I'm going to do is add my little ornament top to the top of my tin, and I'm just adding my hot glue and placing it right on top. And here's where I'm gonna add just a tad more of that Christmas greenery. I just felt like it needed to go further up on the sides, and I was right. I think it's so pretty, and I'll just hot glue those pieces in there. Super easy, and now it's completely done. And here it is all finished, and I think this is so pretty. You guys know I love, love, love looking in at small miniature, scenes and so forth, especially with lights, and at Christmas, it's perfect. I don't know how this little tape roll thing showed up, but I was trying to come up with different ways to either hang it or display it, but this was absolutely perfect, and if it's there, we're gonna use it. But you could add a hook to the back and place this on the wall, maybe do two, and place them at an angle. That was what my original vision was, but I love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. Now for our pattern cue, I got buffalo check, and so I'm going to use 2 of these buffalo check placemats from the Dollar Tree, as well as 2 of their glass vases. And you can see, I think the tall one is 9 inches and the shorter one is 7 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle around the base of my vase because I want the whole thing covered. And since both of my vases are the same circumference or the same size, I'm going to do 2 of those on the same placemat. And then when I cut them out, I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a 1/2 of an inch wider or outside of the line that I drew. And you'll see why in just a second. So now on my placemat, I'm going to use the side that has the finished edge where, the seam is all around the placemat. So I'll use that outside edge, and I'm going to wrap it around my vase. Now you can do long ways or, using the short side, but it fits perfectly with that short side. So I'm going to cut it down. Now you can cover the entire vase, or I'm going to pull it down and let some of that glass peek through because I'm going to be putting candles in this. But if you wanted to use it just for vases or whatever your heart desires, you can do it any way you want to. So now the reason that we oversized the circle is so that we could make little snips around the circle so that when we glue it to the bottom of our vase, we're going to push down those little tabbies on the side so that when we cover it with the round piece or, the longer piece, it's going to cover up and hide the edge of the circled piece, the round piece. You see what I'm saying here? It's easier to watch or see it rather than explaining it. And then once I get that circle bottom piece down, I'm going to take my other piece and wrap it around the side of my vase. And so the part where I cut is at the bottom, so you can't see that raw edge. And then at the top, you have the really pretty finished edge. Ultimately, that's not going to matter, but it will keep it from, shedding or unraveling at the top. And you could just leave it the way that it is with the wrapping of the buffalo check placemat. But I'm going to go even further because as you can see where I brought the 2 pieces together, it kind of reminded me of a jacket. And so I'm going to kind of embrace that and give it a wintry Christmas jacket look. But you could totally stop and put that seam towards the back of your vase so it doesn't show. And that's actually what I had planned to do for this project. And then when I saw that little seam, I had to change it up a little bit. And here's why it doesn't matter if that finished edge is at the top, because I'm going to take a piece of microfiber dust cloth from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to cut a long strip and then fold those pieces on the ends in so that you don't have more of that fraying. So this again is a perfect time to use my HOTO hot glue gun because it's going to make those really long runs all in one shot without having to pull the trigger multiple times. And the glue stays nice and warm so that you have more work time as you're working with it. So then to embellish it even more, I got into my tub O buttons that I have in all different colors that I've received from my grandmas, my mother-in-law. I just seem to acquire everyone's buttons and I'm just gonna hot glue those to the front, 2 on one and 3 on the other. And here they are, all finished, and I think that that little extra time that I took to add those embellishments made this whole project. I thought it was going to be super easy, just, wrapping it with the placemats, but this, I think, took it to a whole different level. I love it, and I hope you guys like it too. So now for my fourth and final cue, we were all assigned a song, and so my song is The Little Drummer Boy. So for this project, I'm going to be using this popcorn tin that I got, 70, 11 years ago when I was still working in the banking industry, and we used to get these all the time from different wholesalers, and I'm sure you get these at Christmas also. And because it's so old, I'm going to use some of this Dollar Tree grip liner because it's got some dents and some doodles on there that I could just paint over it, but it's still got that surface that's a little dented up. So I'm going to cut my grip liner down to the same width as my tin, but I'm also going to make sure that I cut it just below that first notch at the top there. That way I can still use the lid if I need to and fill it with some goodies and use it as a centerpiece for our Christmas buffet. Whatever you want to use it for, or you don't have to use it like that at all. So I'm just going to take my hot glue and attach that all the way around my cookie tin, and I'm just doing the beginning and the ends. In the middle it's kind of grippy, so it stays pretty snug as a bug in a rug. And then again, using that long stream of glue, I'm going to make this Dollar Tree ribbon a little bit thinner and get rid of that neon foil on the edges there and so it'll make it a little bit softer, and then I'll just wrap it around both the top and the bottom of my grip liner. So now I'm going to take some red and gold roping that I got from, I think this is from Hobby Lobby, or I'm not even sure because you never know where these things come from. I've had it for a long time, but I'm going to start going in a zigzag pattern. So I'll hot glue that starting in the back where that seam is, and then I'll go up a little bit, and I didn't even measure, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It comes out pretty close to being even all the way in the back, but because it's in the back, if I am a little off kilter with my, the distance between those zigzags, it'll be in the back so you won't even notice it. So now to give those corners a little cuteness, I'm going to take some more of that scatter foam, and because they're styrofoam, I can just take my knife and cut those in half, and then I'll hot glue those right onto each of those corners. So now to cover up the top writing, I'm going to take some of Dollar Tree's glittered cardstock, and I just cut a circle out, and then I'll hot glue that onto the top of my tin to cover up those words. And then I'll take some red trim and go around the outer edge just to give it a clean finish. And then for the side of my lid where it's still, the tin is showing through, I took some glittery ribbon from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to hot glue that right around the rim there. And the hot glue does show through this particular ribbon because it's kind of thin. So I had to be a little bit sparingly with it so that it didn't, mess up the look. And I'm going to also do that around the bottom of my tin. So now for my drumsticks, I'm going to take 2 of these Dollar Tree skewers or dowels, and then I took 2 of the really small little ornaments from the Dollar Tree in the color red. And these are always so fun to use. You can use them for anything, but I'm going to take my wire cutters and then the little pokey outy part, I'm just going to kind of squeeze it, but gently, and then twist it, and it pulls it off and leaves a perfectly round hole there. And it happens to fit perfectly with the dowel, so it'll fit in there. So I'm going to take some gold skinny ribbon and twist that up to the other side, and then before I close it or finish it all the way up, I'm going to take some hot glue and poke my dowel in there and then finish up with my ribbon. I thought about later I may have wanted to paint my sticks with some white chalk paint, but I originally was going to have a stand on top. You'll see that in a second, and that was in the natural wood also, so it would have coordinated, but you'll see what happens in a minute. So on the other ends of my drumsticks, I'm going to take a Dollar Tree little white bead and I'll just hot glue that, a small one there at the other end, just so it looks like it's finished and they're cute little drumsticks. So now here's the little sign that I was going to use, and you can see the legs are the natural wood that was going to kind of match with my drumsticks, but you'll see I accidentally got some red paint on it when I was painting over the chalkboard paint, or the chalkboard part. Now these little signs are super cute, and you can see that they are, like wedding favors, but there's where I got my red paint on there. So I ended up having to paint my legs completely white because I couldn't get that red off of there. So after the paint dried, I'm going to take my white paint pen and I'll just write a newborn king to see, and then pa-dum-pa-pum-pum, like the song goes. And it's so funny because you can see me here. I can't remember. I'm actually singing the song so that I know how many puzz and rum and pum-pum-pum-pums there are. So once I get that figured out, I'll paint that onto my sign and add a few little dots there. And then for the side of my drums, I thought it was a little bit plain, so it was actually my daughter's idea to get some snowflakes and paint those red and then add them to the side of my drum. So I'll set those aside to dry, and as those are drying, I'm going to take some greenery and put them together just like we did for our little candlestick in the first project, and just grab those together and attach them. And then I'm also going to take a couple of end pieces from that sprig and put those at the top of my sign using that really skinny flower sack stripe ribbon from Walmart. I'm going to make a sweet little bow and attach that right in the middle. And now that my little snowflakes are dry, I can hot glue those right in the middle of each of those triangles just to give it some more cuteness. So now it's time to set it all up, and I'll just put my sign in the back, and then I'll put my little sprig right in front of it with my drumsticks laying over the center. And that's going to cover up the zip tie that's in the middle there, connecting my two sprigs, or that greenery. And you can add a little piece of ribbon or something and make another little bow or whatever you want to do. I have it just sitting right on top of there, and I think it is so adorable and Christmassy and captures the whole story of the little drummer boy. But I love it, and I hope you guys like it too. I hope you guys enjoyed all of these projects, and if you did, don't forget to give them a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. If you're not already, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button down below, as well as the little bell right next to it, so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. Don't forget to check out Emily and Alicia's videos. Remember the real reason for the season. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye!